What is up, everybody? My name is Bobby. I do music. Today, in our first video of 2025, Happy New Year, by the way, we are taking a look at my bass pedal board for recording. Now, really quick thing, as you'll see on the other camera, I've put this onto my testing pedal board, which I use for, and let's get that out of the way, which I use for pedal demos, but normally this is actually over to my right here on a laptop stand that I just filled with Velcro. So I can have it just over here off to my side. So I kind of ripped it apart and put it on here. And yeah, we're going to go through this from the perspective of recording bass. I just did a video last week about recording bass for guitar players, link over here. It's a longer video. It's nearly an hour, I think, 50 minutes. And I wanted to do kind of a supplemental things, just talking about the actual bass board that I used. For the context of that video, it's not super important that it be exactly this. This is just what I use, and I wanted to give a tour of what I use for my bass tones. So yeah, right out the gate, the signal chain. This is my Sire 5-string jazz bass, or V7, whatever they call it. I forget the actual, yeah, they don't have it on here. Oh yeah, V7, there it is. And it does have an active EQ on board, but we are just going to be using it in passive mode. And straight out to you without any processing whatsoever, the jazz bass, both pickups, sounds like this. So pretty naked bass right now. And just to get it there, if we go to the neck pickup, and then to the bridge pickup, it's got that sound. But yeah, we're just gonna, for the most part, I think, stick with both pickups on, volume and tone all the way up. Passive EQ, or the active EQ, is completely out of the circuit, switched off, so straight bass. Now, the way I want to approach this, we're gonna actually, instead of going by signal chain, we're actually gonna construct sounds around the two Darkglass preamps that I have here, the Vintage Deluxe and the B7K. The Vintage Deluxe is going to be a lot more mid-forward, it's going to be warmer, it's going to be more, well, vintage sounding, hence the name. It's clever. And then the B7K over here is going to be much more that modern, clanky sort of sound. And then we're going to go through both of those, and then we'll kind of build everything else around that. But before we even touch those, what you don't see on this board, because it wouldn't fit, yeah, I do have a Notes Torpedo CAB M on the board still, on the actual where I usually keep the bass board, doing cabinet simulation. Now, right now it's bypassed, so again, this is just straight bass. What I actually usually use most of the time is one of two cabinet simulations. This is the Mesa Boogie 8x10. I forget what the actual model is, but and again, bypass sounds like this. Back to that. So just, you know, a little bit of speaker simulation. Or I've got this Mark Bass 2x10 that I use for more of a muted, warmer, less high-end sort of thing. But we'll go back to the Powerhouse, because I feel like it's got a good level of detail to it without it being completely unadorned like a direct tone. But we're going to start with that. And what I want to do first, I've got pretty much everything zeroed out here on the board, and especially on these two units here. I basically treat the Vintage Deluxe and the B7K like they're amplifiers. So I don't run them in tandem, like together. It's usually one or the other, unless I really want a lot of distortion, which is exceedingly rare. But we'll start with the Vintage Deluxe. And actually what I'll do, I've got them set up pretty similarly, except for the level, which is compensated. But all the EQs are straight up and down, blends 100%, drives at noon, so you can hear the difference in the character between the two. So this is nothing, except for the CAB M. Now here's the Vintage Deluxe, drive at noon, everything else at noon. and this is the B7K. So it's a little bit more scooped. It's got a little bit more of that top end thing going on. I'm actually going to boost the level on that a little bit there. Back to the vintage. A little bit more mid-forward, less scooped, a little bit less of that high-end sizzle, but it does have some of that. Now, both of these pedals, if you're unfamiliar with them, other than the tonal differences, they are laid out exactly the same. So along the top, we've got the blend, which I'm actually going to leave at 100% on both of these the entire time. Because that's how I run them. But you can blend in some direct clean tone, which is handy if you're running a high drive tone and you want a little bit of low-end clarity coming through. But we're going to leave the blends full up, so you're just hearing this without any direct unprocessed bass coming through. And the way that these are set up, so blend, yes. Level, that's the level. Drive is the drive. Simple enough. The two switches on the top here, are the attack and grunt switches, and it's the same on both. What those do is actually shape the EQ of the tone going in before the distortion. So you can actually push or reduce the upper mids or the low frequencies before they hit any sort of saturation, which can be a really neat tonal option. Now, we're going to stick with the Vintage Deluxe for a minute here, just so we're not bouncing back and forth so much. But what that lets you do, right now, I've got both of them in the boost position, or I think they call it fat on the grunt. It's like boost and fat. So both of those are engaged. And then if we take the attack switch, which is the upper end, take it from boost to flat, back to boost, back to flat. So you hear that upper grind get a lot more subdued, and you can go one further if you go in the down position, the cut position. Then you get it super cleaned up. And then I'm going to take this back to the flat position, which is neutral. And then the grunt switch, up is boost, middle is thin or cut, and down is flat, neutral. So starting in the grunt position, the boost position. Now there's going to be a level drop. I'm going to go to thin. It's drastic. Let me bring the level back up here. I pretty much never use that. And then we take it to flat. So I pretty much leave that in grunt. Sometimes I'll go flat, but I like the thickness. And then the attack, I'll mess around with it on the Vintage Deluxe if I want a little bit more character, I guess. Just more of that grind without it being like super distorted. If I wanted a little bit more subdued and laid back. And that's without even touching the drive knob. It's been at noon this whole time. So let's start messing with that. I'll take this back to attack so it's a little bit more obvious. We'll start with the drive all the way down. We're going to have to balance level as we go. Take it up to about 9. Start to get some character. We've been at noon. I'm gonna take the level down here. Take it up to 3. So plenty of gain on hand there. I tend to run them down though. I like, you know, kind of low, just a little bit of that saturation for this sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Vintage Deluxe. Now, we haven't touched the EQ yet. And before we do, we're going to switch over to the B7K so you can hear its range and what it tends to excel at. I'm going to do the same thing here, boost and grunt, or fat, I guess it's called. Start us off at no drive and work our way up. So again, plenty of gain on there. I tend to like the drives on both of these kind of down. So yeah, different characters, a little bit more vintage, a little bit more modern, and I kind of build my tones around that. So the next step would be to dial in the EQs, right? So before I touch the EQs, I actually have the harmonic booster over here, which I use as an EQ after the Vintage Deluxe or the B7K. A lot of folks use it before any sort of drive or amp sort of thing, which is completely valid. I guess what I'm doing is the weird thing from what I've seen, but it does what I want. So the harmonic booster is just a clean EQ, basically. It's got bass, treble, and then a sweepable mid frequency with boost and treble. I'm sorry, the sweep is over here and the boost or cut is here. Output volume, and then tone or character, I think is what it's called. I can't see it from here. Yeah, character. Which sort of adds a bit of a smiley face to the whole thing anyway, and it adds more of that Darkglass sound. So let's start by dialing that in, the character, and then I know already I tend to like it about 10 or 11 o'clock, like not so aggressive, but we'll sweep through the whole thing so you can hear it. So we're going to stay with the Vintage Deluxe for now. Without touching the EQ, I just like where the drive is set there. It's clean, but it's got a little bit of character from the Vintage Deluxe if I take that out. It's just bass with a speaker simulation. You get a little bit of saturation from the Vintage Deluxe. And that already makes it sound better in a recording just with that alone. Let's add the harmonic booster now. So on, we shouldn't hear a change. In fact, let's take it off and then we'll turn it on. Pretty much sounds the same. Let's dial in that character. Lost a little volume, so let's bring that back. Actually, my speakers are kind of quiet. Let's turn those up. Just so I can hear. You're not going to hear a difference, but... Take character up a little bit more. So you can hear it scooping out some of those mids. I don't like it quite that extreme. I tend to like it back about there. Here's without. Here's with. So that already scoops out some low mids, especially when I'm recording. I tend to already do a cut around like 350 on a recorded bass just to get it to be a little bit less woofy. So to add to that, I'm gonna take our mid frequency down around, well, here's what we'll do. We'll hunt that frequency down. There's this kind of woolly, woofy, boxy almost thing down in the low mids that tends to get over exaggerated. And so I'm going to cut that a little bit just to make my life a little bit easier when I'm recording. And then we'll sweep through the frequency so you can hear what frequencies we've got. And it's got 250 hertz to 2.5K. Okay, let's go up to that 2.5K. That gets you that kind of rattle and string noise and that sort of thing. Let's just roll through it here. Now I'm also clipping my interface doing that, so if you hear any distortion, that's what that is. But right there, about is usually where I find I actually want to cut just a little bit, like barely. If we do too much, it just hollows out. There's like nothing there. So what I'll do is just pull it back just a skosh. Without. And that's a perfectly fine tone. I have no problem with that. That is very usable, but I like just a little bit of a smiley on a lot of my bass. And to get a little bit more of that smiley, we've got these tiny little bass and treble pots. So I'm gonna boost the bass and the treble. I'm gonna boost the treble just barely. Full ranges. That's a little too much, kind of takes some of the body out. I like just a little bit of accentuation on like string noise and finger stuff just to make, you know, kind of bring out the human element of it. And a little bit of bass there. If we go too much, it's rumbly, and I don't want to do that. Of course, we can take it out too. Not sure why you'd wanna, but yeah, we're gonna boost it about there. Actually, just a little bit less there. Take it out. So we're just doing a little bit of a scoop on it just to kind of make some room for guitars and vocals, especially guitars. Vocals aren't going to get down that low, but just to kind of basically pre-sculpt it on the way in while I'm recording it. Now I'm going to come back to the Vintage Deluxe, and we'll do the same with the B7K and tweak the EQ from there. So what am I looking for? Well, it depends on the sound. But we've got a 4-band EQ here. The low mids and low highs have these 2 push buttons here, and it's the same on the B7K. They're going to be hard for you to see on camera whether they're in or out, so I'm just going to tell you. On both pedals right now, they are in. What that means is on the low mids, we've got 500 hertz, either boost or cut. And on the high mids, we've got 1.5K boost or cut. And that switch is going to change, you know, what frequency it's at if we take them out, both of them. Now we've got 1K and 3K. Put them back in, 500 hertz and 1.5K. So let's start messing with those. I usually actually start with the low end just to get a little bit more rumble out of it if I want. That's actually not too bad right now, but we've got range. There's the super low stuff. So let's pull it back. So that gives me the low end foundation. Maybe I want like a little bit more voice. So I'm gonna switch the low mids up to 1.5K, and you're gonna get a little bit more kind of like, you know, up the neck sort of stuff is gonna be a little bit more pronounced as I boost that. Boost it. Or maybe that's getting in the way and I want more of like a slap tone. By the way, I'm not a slap bassist. I'm barely a bassist as is, but... something like that. Or let's say it's still just a little bit too boxy. I can take this back down to 500 hertz, cut that out, turn the bass on, go extreme. Completely hollowed out mids. Let's not go quite so extreme. So let's say this is actually like for a singer-songwriter style thing and I want it to sit back in a track. I'm actually going to take the attack back up to flat. So now it's a much more muted bass. Maybe I want a little bit of that character to come through, so I'm going to boost the, well, let's hear the difference between 3K and 1.5. So let's start at 1.5 on the upper mids. So that's 1.5 boosted. Let's boost 3K instead. That's you know, a little bit higher point, so it's got a little bit more kind of string noise and less voice, less of the actual note. Switch back to 1.5. And actually, I like that better for that sort of thing, so we'll leave it about there. And I'm for the kind of thing that we're imagining, like a singer-songwriter style thing, I'm not really wanting to touch the treble, but we're going to just to see what it does in this situation. So I think the treble lives at like 5K. So it's going to add more of a kind of airy sort of thing above the 3.5K there. So yeah, I'm actually going to leave that pretty much dead center there. So now we've got that dialed in. Let's dial something else in on the B7K just so we have it. So again, we're going through the harmonic booster as just kind of a finishing EQ. So we're going to kind of EQ into that. Let's say we're going for like some sort of, I don't know, little Green Day, punk rock, Foo Fighters rock sort of thing. We'll switch to a pick. And actually, I kind of like where that's set already. I'm just going to boost the lows a little bit. don't really think I need to touch much else. You know, it would depend on the guitars that it was playing under, the bass and the vocals and all that. But let's mess with the low mids here. We're at 500. So let's pull that down. Goes down just a little bit. And let's mess with the high mids. For this, I do actually want a little bit more of that rattle. So I'm going to switch that up to 3K and boost a little bit. And let's see what treble does for us. That's actually getting kind of pingy. Let's take the treble down. I'm going to bring the low mids back up because it feels like it's kind of hollowed out there. Yeah. So now I've got those two set up for two different things. That's the Vintage Deluxe, and the B7K sounds like this. So we've got them dialed in for two different sounds, which that's roughly what I use these for. And you'll notice the EQs aren't too far off from each other. The low mids are both set to 500. The upper mids on the B7K are set to 3K, and the Vintage Deluxe is set to 1.5K, so they're hitting different points there. But yeah, I mean, you can really hear the difference in the character between the two. Especially, actually, let me bring the attack back in on the Vintage Deluxe here. And then back to the B7K. Yeah, much more scooped. I'm going to take the attack back out of the Vintage Deluxe. We'll stick with that for now. Turn the bass back on. So now let's talk about what I have on either end of the board, which is a pair of compressors. On the right side, first in the chain, I've got the Hyperluminal from Darkglass, and on the left side, I've got the compressor bass from Empress. And they're serving similar but still different purposes. So the Hyperluminal is going into the drives and the harmonic booster, and what I'm looking for there usually is a little evening out of my playing, because I am a guitar player first, not a bass player, so I'm trying to give myself a little bit of a helping hand, a little handicap. So it's usually pretty gentle, and I'm not going to run through all the different modes, but usually what I'm looking for is a little bit of thump and just a little bit of evening out. So let's just start dialing that in. I like the time, kind of about 2 o'clock there, and what that does is slows down the attack, speeds up the release. And with a slower attack, you get a little bit of accentuation on the thump. So let's start with that, blend it full, and we'll start bringing in the actual compression. I'm on the symmetry mode at whatever the third ratio it is. I think it's 4:1, maybe 6:1, I don't remember. But yeah. So that's with it off. Let's turn it on. And actually start bringing in some compression, and you'll see these gain reduction lights start kicking in. And hopefully hear it too. More. Let's do a little bit more time there. Gain compensation. Now, it might take some headphones or good speakers to hear it, but I feel like with that, I get a little bit more of the thump out of the initial attack of the bass. So if I take it out, put it back in. to actually take a little bit more time there. There we go. So a little bit more thump out of that if I take it out. And then with sustain notes, it helps those dwell a little bit longer if I take it out. Now we've got some more sustain too. So it's just evening out the playing, adding a little bit of thump, which I think the symmetry mode is really good for that thumpy sort of thing. Now over to the Empress side of it. This is after all the drive and after the harmonic booster, so I'm looking here to be a little bit more gentle for sure. And with a combination of a few different things here, we can get away with, well, let me put it this way. I'm looking to even further accentuate the thump, because even though we're getting it out of this compressor, as it goes through the Vintage Deluxe or the B7K, we're adding more saturation and we can lose some of that thump. So we're going to bring it back again with the Empress. Now this one's a little bit more of a comprehensive compressor, and let me dial it in and then I'll show you how I got there, and what I was thinking. Okay, so I've dialed in the compressor with, nominal input. We're trimming the output so we're not blowing anything up, and it's going to be roughly the same volume, bypassed and not bypassed. But again, we're accentuating that thump with a slower attack and a faster release. Now that said, if I wanted to, I could make this more of a background element. I would speed up the attack and slow down the release. And now the bass is going to be just a lot more even in general without that extra thump. Let's bring the volume up here. A slower release is going to hold things down a little bit longer and make them a little bit more kind of even and less in your face. A faster release is going to push it more in your face, which is usually what I prefer anyway, but it's nice to have the option on that. So let's get this back. With that sort of thing, I'm looking for it to kind of mesh with a kick drum in a track and kind of accentuate, kick drums and downbeats and that sort of thing. And then what I'll usually do actually is get a little bit more aggressive with it, drive the input a little bit more. In fact, let's get super aggressive, and then we can roll the mix down to about halfway usually. Hopefully you hear those muted notes in between doing that. That'll actually accentuate what I'm trying to accomplish with the compressor here. So without, with, just to make those a little bit more punchy. And then I've got the ratio set at 4:1. You know, 2:1 is going to be more gentle, of course. A little bit more dynamic, and then 10:1 is going to be a little bit more extreme. But I feel like that's too much for what I'm trying to accomplish. So 4:1 seems to be a happy medium for me. And then I do have the sidechain, the high-pass sidechain, which takes the bass out of the detection circuit, doesn't take it out of the audible circuit, but it helps the compressor be a little bit less hyper-reactive to the low end of the bass, especially if you're, you know, on the low B. I roll that back. Take it back up. It's a little bit less like clamping down. It's a little bit more open sounding, but it still does what I want it to do. And then lastly, we've got the color knob here, or color switch rather, which I usually leave neutral. But I do like sometimes pushing it to the right, which will push up the upper mid and add a little bit more saturation in the compressor. And I like that for if I want the bass to be a bit of a feature while still holding down the low end. I take that back down off. And then it also has the left position, which scoops the low mids a little bit. But I'm already doing that with a harmonic booster, so I tend not to use that personally. There are dip switches inside where you can also take out the saturation side of it and just have it be an EQ sort of thing. So yeah, but yeah, this is the baseboard, and I get with this all of my bass tones. This in combination with the CAB M to my right gives me all the speaker tones and all the bass tones I really could ever want for the kind of bass that I play, which is really foundational. I'm not doing a lot of fancy, like, I'm not, you know, Joe Dart doing Wolfpack, like, super noodly, featured lines. It's really just holding down the low end behind guitars and keyboards and vocals and that sort of thing, so. So let's take everything out so I can remind you what we started with. Everything's bypassed. This is just direct bass. Turn on the speaker. First compressor. Throw in the Vintage Deluxe. Harmonic booster. And the compressor bass. Take off the vintage, let's go to the B7K. Plenty of options for me, vintage and modern, whether I want it to be like hyper distorted and modern or laid back and vintage and kind of 70s, 60s warm sort of thing. I've got all these options. And on top of that, an amazing bass, not sponsored by anyone, but, you know, amazing bass, solid selection of gear. I have another bass back there with humbuckers that I use on occasion. It's a little bit fatter, a little bit warmer, a little bit less articulate like a jazz bass. Doesn't have that upper kind of zing that you get out of a jazz bass. But yeah, just wanted to do a run through of the board that I used in the previous video. And yeah, you guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and commenting. You guys are amazing. I'm hoping to carry the good energy into 2025. You know, we're 7 days in and it's already looking to be great. So thank you guys so much. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. No, not a slapper.